So if you are interested in electric hybrid propulsion for sailboats, then this is the video for you. I feel like it was pretty forced.
A little bit like...
We're building our very own custom aluminum expeditionary catamaran from scratch. There's a lot of really innovative design features that we've integrated into this project, but one of the aspects we're most excited about is the unique hybrid electric propulsion system. I mean, a lot of this stuff is very new, and I expect there to be problems, and if everything works right the first time, then maybe we haven't been trying enough stuff. I mean, I feel confident, I feel good about this, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. We've already got our diesel engine in place. No, hold. Our 80 horsepower Nanny N480. And now it's time to start looking at the electric side of things. Today's a very exciting day because for the first time, we actually get to look at the hybrid system that will be going into Delos 2.0. So you can see it right here. There's a bunch of stuff that we're gonna talk about today, and then we're gonna answer some questions that we sent to our patrons. So thank you very much for sending the questions in, guys. You got some really good questions that we're gonna answer today, and that's pretty cool. So this is the actual hybrid system. It's from Combi, which is a company in the Netherlands. And we worked with the NZ Electric Boat Company to get it into Australia. So if you have any questions about this system, Chris at NZ Electric Boat Company knows like a lot of details. He really helped me through the process, and he's an amazing resource. We'll pop both their websites below and you can contact him there. But yeah, let's get straight to it. So what do we have here? Basically, this is the most exciting part. These are the 25 kilowatt electric motors. It's interesting to note that these are not 25 kilowatt for intermittent usage. They're rated for continuous usage, although that consumes such a crazy amount of power. There's no way that we could sustain running two 25 kilowatt hours for more than, I mean, even with 50 kilowatt hours of batteries, you'd blow through the whole thing in less than an hour. There's two different ones. So we have this one right here, which is for the hybrid side. So if you can imagine, the Nanny diesel engine will be under it, and then there will be a belt. So this is similar to like a drive belt that you might see on a Harley Davidson or the timing belt on a car. It goes down to another cog right here. And you can notice that these are different sizes than each, so that gives us a little bit of a reduction. It's not quite 2-to-1 reduction. I can't remember the exact ratio, but basically the motor spins a little bit faster. This, because of the size, spins the prop shaft a little bit slower, and that gives us a good speed for the shaft RPM. So you wouldn't want to spin the propeller shaft at the same RPM as the electric motor because it would just be too fast. Everything has to be matched together on this system, and it's probably worth noting that for our particular system, we're targeting a cruising shaft RPM of about 900 RPM. So that matches up to the Nanny, which has maximum torque at 1800 RPM with a 2-to-1 reduction gearbox. That gives us a 900 RPM shaft RPM. And that's important because we need to match the size of the propeller and the pitch of the propeller to take advantage of that shaft speed. So if we spun the shaft way too fast or way too slow, we wouldn't be in the range of maximum efficiency. So that's why it's necessary to pay attention to all these numbers, and nothing will be 100% perfect, but you're trying to say like, this is where we're gonna use it most often, and we wanna target our best efficiency for here, and then you match all the gear to that. And so that's why there's kind of like a reduction ratio on this. Now, this electric motor right here is a little bit different. This goes straight to the shaft. This is a specially wound motor that maxes out at, I believe it's 1100 RPM. And so we don't need a reduction on this because it's been specially wound to operate effectively at a reduced RPM, which is pretty cool. I know some of you might be asking about the sizes. Why are they different sizes? Honestly, I don't know why. They're both the same power rating. They're both rated for continuous power. They're both liquid cooled motors. So there will be a cooling loop. You can see the fittings on top here and here that will take just the same as you do in a diesel engine. The coolant will flow through, in and around the motor and out, sucking heat with it, and then we'll put that through a heat exchanger that will then run raw salt water through to blow heat out the boat. One reason why this might be a different size, so this has a special bracket that it mounts to, that it attaches to the Nani, the diesel engine, whereas this one is standalone. So these brackets, these are the motor mounts. It goes straight on there, and it actually might need to be that wide to fit with normal engine beds. That would kind of be my guess. So moving on, this is the clutch. So this is one of the most unique elements to this system that I thought was very cool. So this clutch attaches to the gearbox on one side, the prop shaft, and the propeller on the other, and obviously the pulley on one. And so the idea is that this is an electromagnetic clutch. So we can actuate this with electricity, basically. And what we can do is either engage or disengage the propeller shaft by applying or not applying voltage to this wire, which means that if we're at anchor, we can disengage this clutch, we can spin the diesel engine, which means we can spin this guy and we can utilize it as a big DC genset. And I think we can get maximum slightly less than the total rating of the motor. I think we're supposed to be able to get around 20 kilowatts of power. So if all goes well, we should end up with about a 20 kilowatt DC genset.
So we won't have a separate generator?
We will not need a separate generator. We'll just disengage this clutch, crank up the normal diesel engine. We have almost like running a diesel engine with an alternator to charge your batteries, except it's significantly larger than a normal alternator. So there's a bunch of modes of operation for this system. So obviously we have the DC genset mode, which I just talked about. We have fully electric mode, obviously, so we can turn the diesel engine off, and from maneuvering, we can run just off of electric power. Then we have the regen mode, so if we're under sail, we can unbrake the prop shafts, unfeather the props, which will then turn the shaft, which will then turn the electric motors, and we can generate electricity under sail that way. And then the other mode of operation that is pretty unique to this system would be the hybrid portion. And so imagine that we need to go a fairly long range. And I estimate the range under pure electric power at maybe 5 or 6 knots is probably going to be somewhere in the range of 25 to 30 nautical miles. If we could get that much, I'd be pretty happy. That's with 50 kilowatt hours of batteries. And so if we need to go, let's say, through the Panama Canal, or if we're motoring from Madagascar to South Africa and there is zero wind for 6 days and we want to get out of there before the next Southwest Buster comes up and destroys us out of Antarctica, well, we're going to have to motor. And so then we crank up the Nani diesel. We have the clutch engaged. We have diesel power straight through to the propeller shaft, at which point we can still generate electricity with this one. So as we're motoring and using the propulsion from the diesel engine straight to the prop shaft, like the same traditional system we have on Delos, then we can also use the extra power of the diesel to generate power with this one. We can either charge batteries, or we can send that extra power over to the fully electric side, which is this one, and run that motor. Now it's worth noting that the design calls for twin 50 horsepower diesel engines, one on each side, and 25 kilowatts is approximately equal to, it's like 47.5 horsepower, I think the rating is. But what I wanted to mention is we've put in an 80 horsepower diesel engine. And so we should have enough to pump full power to one side, matched to the propeller, under normal diesel propulsion, and then an additional amount of power on the other side to help us go straight. There's a couple questions about this from the Patreon list that I can go through. I think that's the highlights of that. This is a controller. It's very, very heavy. It's got a giant heat sink on the back of it that is also water cooled. This is where our 48 volts goes in, right here. And then these are the outputs, the 3 motor phases, U, V, and W, that go out to the electric motor. This is the size of the cables, right? So you can imagine running these to this. They go in there, they connect, and that's actually what powers the motor.
Is this stuff that you actually click on? Like, when do you use those buttons?
So this is all going to be mounted permanently in the engine room. Shouldn't have to touch this unless we're programming the motors or doing maintenance or something like that. Let me grab the throttles real quick. So these are the 2 throttles, right? So we'll have a standard system. So whenever we need to maneuver the boat, when we're going on and off the hook, if we're pulling into a dock, we can just be sitting here and driving these like you would normally a catamaran by using forward and reverse thrust to pivot the boat around. So all that stays the same. The other cool thing is, since this is an electronic control system, then we're going to be working with also Chris at the New Zealand Electric Boat Company to create a remote control. And I saw a demo of this he just did, and it's the coolest thing. I'm titling it like the world's biggest RC boat, but literally it looks like a radio controller you'd have for like a boat or an airplane or whatever. We'll have 2 sticks that'll have all the NEMA data on it, and it will communicate with the system and literally allow me to drive or dock the boat from anywhere on the boat, like even off the boat. I mean, we could literally be driving through reefs or Balmies and be on Maggie if we felt comfortable, like with our big RC boat behind us.
And that's a video coming up, or?
I hope so. We'll see. I mean, a lot of this stuff is very new. There's a lot of new stuff that we're trying on this boat, and I expect there to be problems. And if everything works right the first time, then maybe we haven't been trying enough stuff. I mean, I feel confident. I feel good about this, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. So that's pretty cool. Any other questions, guys? Should I start going through the Patreon questions? Or?
Yeah.
A huge thanks to all of our patrons for submitting their questions in advance. If you'd like to participate in Q&As like these, plus watch all of our videos a week early with no ads, get invites to meetups here in the boatyard, and lots of other sweet perks, please check out our inner tribe at patreon.com/svdelos. First question is from Big Jim. Thank you, Big Jim. System overview. It would be great for you to review the system overview, functionality, failure modes, redundancy. What do you think is most likely to fail, and what do you think to do when it does? I think I covered the general system overview pretty well. Mm-hmm. I guess the failure mode for this is just going back to, if all of this stuff stops working, no matter what happens, we still have the same diesel engine that we've always had, like very similar to Delos, where you just need to give it fuel, air, and get it to turn over, and you can always run under that. So if all this stuff goes to hell, we still have standard diesel engine, standard transmission to a straight prop shaft linked to a propeller. We can always move the boat somewhere. So that's our fallback plan. Other than that, anything could go sideways at any point, I guess. But we've had pretty good luck with electric motors in general on Delos. David Seabrook. So he says, how does the coupling between port and starboard work? I mean, if you're running just on the diesel side or just on the electric side, how do you transmit power to both props equally? Is there some kind of a gearbox or differential joining the 2 shafts? So no, the connection is electric, right? So, we'll be producing excess power with this unit while motoring. We can send that excess power through the bus bar to the other side, to this guy. And it's gonna be interesting to see how much power it actually takes to move the boat. I was on a 54-foot catamaran at the Annapolis Boat Show under fully electric power, and we were using, I think it was like between 6 and 7 kilowatts to move the boat at 5 knots. And so that would be a fraction. And of course the conditions were calm and there was no sea state or anything like that, but it's gonna be really interesting to see how much power we actually need to move the boat at a reasonable speed given the conditions. But no, there's no mechanical linkage, there's no gearbox, there's no differential. It's all done with electricity, and they're completely separate. And so to match the RPM of the propellers, you literally would just do that with the throttles, just like you would normally do on a motor. More throttle, more RPM, right? Okay, next up, Matt Allswede. It says, I'm really curious to know how to keep enough belt tension to run a 25 kilowatt generator without destroying the shaft bearings. I presume it will be a serpentine belt, but how wide does it need to be to prevent slippage at higher output levels? What is the wattage sweet spot for the generator in this setup? Yeah, so I mean, it basically is a very similar belt to what you'd have in the timing belt in a car, or a belt drive for a motorcycle, which is a very proven concept. That goes on there like this. It's a tooth belt, and then there's a belt tensioner. So I don't know if you can see this thing that slides back and forth right here. You can tighten it with these bolts. And then I haven't exactly figured out where all this goes, but I'm assuming this bracket goes on somewhere. That's gonna go through there. This is a roller bearing, and then you tighten that until that pushes in the belt in some way to tension it. I'm assuming that we'll want to carry a couple of spares of these, and I'll probably put them on like this so that if we happen to break one, I don't have to take everything apart to get the belt on. But yeah, that's it. I mean, you can see that this is an Optibelt Alpha Torque AT10/980 ST. Looks like it's got steel reinforcements inside of it. It's an industrial looking belt. Okay, Scott Wise says, someone above hinted at propeller sizes. Will each side have a different prop? Also, what does Sierra think about all these technical details? What does Kaza think about all these technical details?
It's not my
It's not your forte?
passion.
It's like when you start talking about shades of paint.
Yes, and you're just glazed
And I just
out.
say, like, I wish I was talking about my cool hybrid setup.
Yeah, so I think we have our different areas, which is cool because then we hopefully cover most things.
Yeah, exactly. Different passions.
Yeah.
But back to Scott's question, no. There will be, I wanted to keep the propeller sizes the same on both, so each side will have a Brunton's EcoStar 504 millimeter prop, which I think is about a 20-inch propeller. It's very similar to what we have on Delos. Since the beginning of the trip, we've had the Brunton's Autoprop H6. It's a feathering propeller that uses centrifugal force to pitch the blades in different ways, and I've been really, really amazed at how well it performs both under sail and under power. The prop will auto pitch depending on the load and the RPM and the speed of the boat. It's very efficient at motor sailing, and this particular prop, the EcoStar, is specifically designed to take advantage of hybrid setups like this. So it'll be the same prop on both sides. And that's one of the reasons why we were very specific about matching the RPM with the Nanny, with the electric motor here, and with this electric motor to make sure that we're taking advantage of that prop, not spinning it too fast. Yeah, and cavitating. So Matt Potts says, this seems to be a long thought out balance between cost, weight, and performance. Yeah, put some thought into it. Since you have two holes and thus the option for redundancy, out backup by having one engine in each hull, what ultimately led you to go with just one engine? I'm not sure if y'all are ever planning to take her out to remote locations, but do you have any concerns about backup systems and self-recovery? Yeah, so I mean, in Delos, we have one diesel engine. We've gone around the world multiple times. Well, the boat's been. We've done it once. Never wanted a second engine. Never wanted to maintain a second engine. There's weight savings, there's cost savings, so there's a lot of savings there. I know it feels a little bit unsymmetrical to only have an engine in one engine room on the boat. Sometimes people mount them centrally, but in this case, because we're doing the shaft drive for the diesel side, it really makes a lot of sense. If you think about it, if we have one way of propulsion on Delos, here we actually have three. So we have diesel and we have two electric, so there's a total of 3 ways to move the boat for redundancy. And there's also pretty big weight savings. So the typical diesel engine in that size range is going to weigh anywhere from 250 to 283 kilos. So that's a pretty significant amount of weight to save. And space, yeah, and maintenance. So, if worst case scenario, if we end up thinking that during sea trials that this system won't work for us or won't allow us to do extended or remote cruising, then we would just throw another diesel engine in the other hole. It's the same mount, it's the same space. It can be done. I don't think we will though. Keith Bailey says, are you going with a fixed or feathered propeller? I guess if the assumption is that the shafts will always be spinning on passage, then it will be nice to not worry about the cost and complexity of a feathering prop. So I already talked about why we're using the Brunton's EcoStar. The one thing I didn't mention is they really are a very simple design. So it's basically a hub, and then it has the feathering propeller blade on one side with a bearing. So there's no, I know on some feathering props you have to go into reverse once and then forward twice or something to get it to shift into these different kind of pitch situations. This is not like that at all. Because it's just a rotating bearing, it's designed to do it by this. Should we stop?
It's so loud.
Life in a boatyard. So there is part of Keith's question here. I guess if the assumption is that the shafts will always be spinning on passage. So no, the shafts will not be spinning when we're under sail. The reason for that is if the shaft is spinning, there's a lot of energy going into spinning the propeller and the shaft and everything, which means that you're losing speed. And so on Delos, if we let the shaft free spin, we lose somewhere between a half a knot and 3/4 of a knot if the propeller is not feathered. So it's pretty significant. So normally what you would do is you would lock the gearbox or the transmission in gear, which stops the shaft from spinning, which forces the propeller to feather. But in our case, because we have a hydraulic transmission, we can't do that. So we'll have to use a shaft brake. So there's a hydraulic shaft brake that will also be supplied by Brunton's that bolts onto all this, that will literally lock the shaft with the disc brake caliper and then feather it. And it gives us something like, I think it's almost 90% greater efficiency than having the propellers unfeathered. David Kegel? Is that a Swedish word, Kaz? How do you pronounce that?
Kogel.
Okay. Yeah.
Kogel.
Kogel.
Yeah.
I'm not good with the Swedish accents. Solglasögon? Utfart. Infart. It's the opposite of outfart. Farthinder. How does it balance the RPM of both propellers? I mean, so one propeller doesn't do 1600 and the other doing 2200. So basically that's all done via the throttles. So, you just watch the RPM, set it where you want it. There's no automated system or anything behind that. Greg Mickelson says, love the videos of the new build. How about an update on Delos 1.0? Are you planning on going somewhere with her again? Yeah. So Delos is in Raiatea in French Polynesia, and we are going to be heading there around the middle of April. And our plan is to sail her. We were originally thinking to sail her through the Cooks, through Tonga and then to Fiji. But now we're thinking of just maybe sailing her all the way to Australia, because we're making such good progress on the build. By the time we do that trip and then we come back and we work for a little while longer, I think we're going to be itching to start doing sea trials and stuff. So it might be time to get Delos here and get her ready for whoever's going to take her on her next lap. I don't know. It's kind of sad to think about.
Yeah, it's crazy, huh?
Yeah. And then John M. says, I'm interested in seeing the tuning process for this setup. I'm sure it's going to be interesting getting everything balanced. Yeah, so the tuning process in this is largely a programming effort. And so you can set all sorts of different parameters for these electric motors regarding like the max power they consume, how quickly the power ramps up, like how sensitive they are to, if they should continue running when the voltage drops and all these things. So we're actually going to be working with Chris at NZ Electric Boat Company to make sure that all the parameters are set correctly for like regen and everything. It's a little programmable unit that you set everything with. So I guess that's all the questions I had.
I mean, that's almost 30 minutes.
Oh wow, I've been talking for 30 minutes. If you have other questions or comments, I guess pop them in the comments below in this video. And we really appreciate your support. And if you'd like to see more of this type of content, we're putting up a lot of things on Patreon about specific systems as the build gets going on. So you can always check out patreon.com/svdelos. It's what allows us to make these videos and to continue with this project. And I hope you get something out of it as well. Okay, that's it.